Elena was 17, and most days of her life felt like someone had pressed the repeat button. She woke up early, long before the sun, washed her face with cold water to wake up properly, and packed her books for school. Her mother usually left even earlier for work, so the apartment was always quiet in the morning. The silence made her feel like the world was still asleep, like every sound she made echoed too loudly. Some mornings she wished she could sleep a little longer, just to feel like a normal teenager, but she didn't want to fall behind in anything. She believed if she worked hard now, maybe life would get better later. The apartment was small, the kind of place where if someone sneezed in the kitchen, the sound shook the bedroom door. The walls were thin and a little stained with age, and the furniture was old enough that some chairs wobbled. But it was home. It smelled like laundry detergent and the soap her mother bought in bulk when it went on sale. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and for Elena that meant something. She kept her room tidy because it was the only space that felt like hers. She taped little drawings to the wall and small notes to herself that read things like, "Don't give up," and "Music is your voice." After school, she didn't go home like most students. She went straight to the cafe inside the luxury hotel where she worked as a waitress. The cafe was bright, with tall windows that made the sunlight fall across the marble floors like gold. The place always smelled like fresh pastries and roasted coffee beans. She wore a neat black uniform and a small name badge. Most customers didn't even look at her name. They just saw her as someone who refilled cups and cleared plates. Elena didn't take it personally. She knew people were busy and lost in their own worlds. Sometimes she watched the guests from behind the counter. They were the type who talked about vacations, investments, and events she had only seen online. They always looked so confident, like life had opened doors for them since the day they were born. Elena tried not to feel jealous. She reminded herself that everyone had their own story, and hers just hadn't reached the good part yet. No one at the cafe knew that, in her soul, she wasn't just a quiet girl in a uniform. She was a musician. She was a pianist, even if she had never touched a grand piano. She had learned by watching videos online and practicing on a small keyboard she had found secondhand. The keyboard keys were a little loose on the left side, and the volume sometimes glitched, but to her it was a treasure. She didn't have a teacher, so she became her own teacher. She watched tutorials, paused them, rewound them, tried again, and tried again. She learned where each note lived, not just on the keyboard but in her heart. Music was the one thing that made her feel like she mattered. When she played, she forgot about rent, grades, and tired feet from work. She forgot the customers who snapped their fingers for service or whispered complaints about things that didn't even matter. When she played, she felt alive, like her future was not just a long hallway of work and exhaustion. It felt like there was a door somewhere, and if she kept practicing, maybe she would find the key. Her classmates didn't really know this side of her. They knew she was quiet and polite, and that she didn't go to parties or hang out after school. Some thought she was boring. Others just didn't think about her at all. She didn't mind. She wasn't angry at them. She just felt like they were all in a different chapter of life, and she was in a chapter they hadn't read yet. After her shifts, when the cafe started to calm down and the crowd thinned, an older pianist named Mr. Braun would play soft music in the corner. He was hired by the hotel, dressed in a sleek suit, and he moved through the music like a person who had been born to do nothing else. Elena would clean tables near the piano just to listen a little longer. She never told him she played. She didn't want to sound silly, like a kid claiming to be something she wasn't. She thought if she said it out loud, he might laugh, even though he probably wouldn't. He seemed kind. But still, she stayed quiet. On slow days, she would hum along while she wiped down the counters. Sometimes, without meaning to, her fingers moved in the air like she was pressing invisible keys. Her coworker, a cheerful girl named Lila, noticed once. "You always move your hands like that," Lila said, leaning beside her at the sink, "like you're typing in thin air. It looks like piano stuff." Her voice was curious, not teasing. Elena paused, surprised someone had seen her. "Yeah," she said softly. "I play a little, just at home." "That's cool," Lila replied, smiling. "You should play here someday." Elena laughed, not because it was funny, but because it felt impossible. Maybe in another lifetime, she said. She didn't tell Lila that she dreamed of sitting at a piano on a stage. She didn't tell her that sometimes. Before bed, she pictured bright lights and an audience listening. She didn't tell her that music was the only thing that made her believe she could be someone different. It felt too personal, like showing someone her heart without being sure they'd protect it. One night, she came home late from her shift, her legs sore and her back aching. She tossed her uniform into the laundry basket and changed into a faded t-shirt. Her keyboard sat in the corner of the room, waiting. She plugged it in, turned it on, and sat down. Her fingers found the keys easily, like greeting an old friend. The first few notes came out gentle and hesitant, then smoother as her body remembered the rhythm. She played a piece she had been working on for weeks. It was still messy in places, but she kept going. She felt her stress melt with every note. She didn't realize she was smiling until she felt her cheeks warm. She played until her fingertips tingled. She played until the world didn't feel so heavy. Sometimes she imagined what it would feel like to sit at a real piano. Not just any piano, a grand piano, the kind that filled a room with its presence. She imagined pressing the keys and hearing a sound so clean and rich it felt like magic. She imagined people listening, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. She imagined applause. She imagined tears, not of sadness but of joy. But then the music would stop, and she'd remember where she was. The tiny room, the old keyboard, the unpaid bills on the kitchen counter, the next shift waiting in the morning. The dream felt fragile, like a bubble that might burst if she held it too tightly. Even so, she didn't let go of it. She couldn't. Music wasn't just a hobby. It was hope, and hope was something she couldn't afford to lose. Some nights, when her mother came home, she would stop in the doorway and listen quietly. She didn't interrupt. She didn't say much, but her eyes softened. She knew her daughter had something special, even if the world hadn't discovered it yet. She wished she could do more to help, but life wasn't easy. Sometimes love meant simply believing, silently, even when you couldn't change anything yet. Elena practiced until her eyelids felt heavy. She turned off the keyboard, crawled into bed, and stared at the ceiling. She didn't pray exactly, but she made a wish, the same one she made every night. Let my music matter someday. She whispered it like a secret, like a spell, like a dream she refused to abandon. She didn't know what the future held. She had no idea that life was about to pull her out of the background and place her where everyone could see her. She didn't know that the hotel where she served coffee would become the place where her life changed forever. She didn't know that people who had never seen her would one day search her name online. She didn't know that her hands, the same hands that cleared tables and washed dishes, would soon play music that would make strangers stop and stare. For now, she was still just a waitress with a hidden talent. Still just a girl with a second-hand keyboard. Still someone practicing in a small room with thin walls. Still someone ordinary. But even ordinary people carry extraordinary worlds inside them. And Elena's world was music, waiting, patiently, for its moment to be heard. The hotel looked different on the day of the charity gala. Usually, Elena walked in through the staff entrance and saw the same dull hallway, the same gray lockers, and the same notice board with schedules pinned to it. But that morning, even the staff area felt brighter. A buzz of energy filled the air, like the whole building was holding its breath for something big. People moved faster. The managers spoke in quick sentences. Everyone seemed determined not to make a single mistake. Outside the cafe, the lobby was being transformed. Workers set up banners with gold lettering, and a florist arranged towers of fresh flowers taller than Elena. The scent of roses and lilies floated through the hotel like perfume. Chandeliers sparkled, polished to perfection. Guests would arrive later in gowns and suits, carrying themselves like royalty. It was the kind of event Elena had only seen in movies. Her shift didn't start for another hour, but she came early. She always did on big days. She liked watching the hotel change, like the building was an actor stepping into character. It amazed her what a few hours of effort could do, how ordinary space could be turned into something magical. It made her believe that maybe people could change too, that maybe she could. She clocked in and tied her apron carefully, smoothing it down to make sure there were no wrinkles. She tied her hair back neatly. Presentation mattered in a place like this. She'd learned that quickly. First impressions were everything here. Sometimes she wondered if people would treat her differently if she walked out there in a gown instead of a uniform. In the staff room, her manager, Mr. Rhodes, stood in front of a clipboard. He looked tense more than usual. His suit fit perfectly, but his face showed the stress. He had a habit of tapping his pen when he worried, and today he might as well have been a drummer. He glanced up when he saw her. "You're early," he said, trying to sound neutral but not unfriendly. "I wanted to help," she replied. He nodded, as if he expected nothing less. "The gala starts at 6. We need everything perfect. You'll be on drink service. No mistakes tonight." She nodded. She knew the rules. Keep your posture straight. Stay calm. Don't linger. Serve with a smile. No personal conversations with guests unless they start it first. Don't be distractingly chatty. Don't be invisible either. Be just enough. It was like walking a tightrope. After the meeting, she went to the cafe to start her regular tasks. She polished glasses until she could see her reflection clearly. She checked every napkin to make sure none were wrinkled. She arranged pastries in neat rows. Each movement felt important. It felt like the entire event depended on every small action adding up. While she worked, she kept thinking about the music that would play that evening. Normally, Mr. Braun would be at the piano in the lobby, setting the mood with soft classical pieces. His music always made her feel like the hotel was more than a place to work. It felt almost like a world of its own. Today, she was curious what he would play. Something dramatic? Something gentle? Something that wrapped around the room like silk? But as she set her tray on the counter, she noticed something odd. The grand piano in the lobby was still closed. No sheet music rested on top of it. No sign of preparation. She frowned. That wasn't normal. Her fingers twitched, like reacting to a note she couldn't hear. Mr. Braun was nowhere in sight. Maybe he was running late. Maybe he was rehearsing in a different room. She tried not to think too much about it. After all, she had her own responsibilities. During her break, she stepped outside for fresh air. The sky was a clear blue, the kind that made it feel like anything was possible. She leaned against the wall and watched guests start to arrive early. Fancy cars pulled up, sleek black ones, shiny silver ones, cars with designs she didn't even know the names of. Doormen opened doors, and people stepped out like they owned the world. She wondered what it would feel like to belong in that world. To arrive somewhere and know people were waiting to see you. To walk into a room and not feel like you had to apologize for taking up space. "Big night," a voice said beside her. It was Lila, her coworker, carrying a tray of polished cutlery. "Yeah," Elena answered, still watching the entrance. "You okay?" Lila asked, raising an eyebrow. "You look like you're thinking about something deep, like really deep, like universe deep." Elena laughed. "Just imagining things, I guess." "About the music?" She blinked. "What do you mean?" Lila shrugged. "You always notice the piano more than anyone else. I figure music has to be running through your brain all the time." Elena's cheeks warmed. She didn't know what to say, so she just nodded. It was true. Music did run through her brain all the time like a second heartbeat. They went back inside, and the countdown to the gala continued. By late afternoon, servers lined up for inspection. Managers checked their uniforms, posture, and even the way they held trays. Elena passed inspection and took her spot. Everything moved quickly after that. Trays of champagne circulated. Guests mingled and laughed. The hotel's lights glowed softly, making the room feel like a dream. Elena kept moving, pouring, offering, clearing. Her feet hurt, but she didn't slow down. She never did. Then something happened that made the air shift. Her manager hurried toward the staff with a pale face and worry etched in every line. He stopped in front of them and spoke in a low voice, as if afraid the walls might hear. "The pianist isn't coming," he said. The words hung there heavy. "What?" someone whispered. "He called," the manager explained. "There's been an emergency. He can't make it." A murmur spread through the team like electricity. Music was a major part of the event. The gala's atmosphere depended on it. Without music, the night might feel flat, incomplete. And guests at expensive events were quick to notice when something felt off. "We need a replacement," the manager said, pressing a hand to his forehead. "But the other musicians we know are booked. We don't have time." He looked like he might lose his balance. A moment passed, then another, and another, and then Lila spoke, her voice cutting through the tension. "She plays," she said, pointing gently toward Elena. "She's good." The room went silent. Elena felt like all the air had been sucked away. Her heart beat fast, too fast. She wished she could disappear into the floor. Everyone was looking at her. She wanted to hide, to say no, to run. The manager stared at her, shocked. "You play." She swallowed. Her voice barely worked. "A little. Not professionally." Silence again. Then, with no other option, the manager said, "We need something. Anything. We can't have silence. Can you do it?" Her ears buzzed. She felt dizzy. She wanted to say no, to protect herself from the risk. What if she played and it sounded amateur? What if she made a mistake? What if she embarrassed herself? What if this moment ruined music for her instead of elevating her? But then she remembered her wish from the night before. Music matters. Make it matter. So she nodded. "I'll try," she said. The manager didn't waste a second. "Get changed. We'll find something presentable. Go now." She hurried through the staff corridors, trying not to stumble. A supervisor handed her a simple knee-length black dress that the hotel kept for emergencies. It wasn't fancy, but it fit her. She slipped it on, smoothed her hair, and took a deep breath. In the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Not because she looked glamorous. She didn't. She still looked like her. But there was something new in her eyes. Fear, yes, but also possibility. A staff member led her back to the lobby. The grand piano sat under the chandelier, waiting like a giant secret. She had never played one. Not a real one. Not even once. Her hands trembled as she approached. She sat down slowly, her knees weak. She touched the keys lightly, feeling the cool smoothness under her fingertips. The room behind her buzzed with conversation. No one knew the music was about to come from her. She inhaled. The first note she played felt like stepping into water. Unfamiliar, but not dangerous. The sound was richer than anything she had ever heard. It filled the room like sunlight through an open window. She played again, and again. A melody formed. Her fingers remembered patterns her mind had forgotten. She wasn't just playing keys. She was speaking in a language that only the heart understood. She didn't know if she was doing well. She didn't know if she was good enough. She didn't know if people were staring. All she knew was that for the first time in her life, she wasn't hiding her music. She was sharing it. She was letting it breathe. And in that moment, she realized something. Maybe belonging didn't come from waiting for permission. Maybe it came from stepping forward when no one expected it. When Elena began to play, she felt the world shrink to the length of the piano keys. The hotel lobby that moments before felt enormous now felt like a small stage built just for her. She played carefully at first, each note like a question she wasn't sure she was allowed to ask. The melody trembled a little, like a voice speaking after years of silence. But the piano answered her. The sound was warm, full, and alive, like it had been waiting for her hands. Guests continued to arrive, walking past with the confident air of people born into comfort. At first, no one paid attention. They were busy greeting each other, shaking hands, laughing at private jokes. The music was just another background detail. That was fine with Elena. She didn't need an audience. She needed to breathe. She played a slow piece she had learned online, adapting the parts she couldn't remember. The notes blended together gently, like watercolors bleeding into each other on soaked paper. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting her fingers move. She didn't think. She didn't plan. She just felt. After a few minutes, something began to change. The noise in the lobby softened, not because the guests became quieter, but because they began to listen without meaning to. Conversations slowed. Glasses stopped clinking. People turned, just a little, to see who was playing. A man near the entrance paused, his coat still in his hands. He tilted his head, listening. A woman holding a champagne flute lowered it slowly. A small group of teenagers, dressed in formal wear, whispered to each other, surprised that someone so young could sound so graceful. Elena didn't see any of it. She was lost in the music. She played like she was speaking to someone she missed, like she was apologizing to all the versions of herself who had ever felt small, like she was building a bridge out of sound to cross into a world where she belonged. Her hands moved faster now. Confidence sparked like electricity. She still made mistakes. Missed notes and uneven rhythms slipped in, but she didn't stop. Each mistake became part of the performance. She was learning in real time, adjusting, trusting herself. She wasn't pretending to be perfect. She was being honest. And honesty has a way of reaching people. Near the back of the lobby stood a young content creator, someone known online for discovering hidden talent around the city. He was there to film the gala, to capture luxury and elegance for his followers. But when he heard the piano, he forgot about fancy decorations. He took out his phone slowly, like moving too fast might break the moment, and hit record. He didn't zoom in right away. He wanted the sound, the feeling. Only after a few seconds did he angle the camera to show the girl at the piano. Her expression focused, her posture humble. Her black dress was simple. Her hair was pulled back in a way that said she was used to working, not performing. But her presence was strong. Her music gave her a shape larger than her body. One of the hotel supervisors noticed what was happening. She rushed toward the man with the phone, ready to tell him filming wasn't allowed. But the manager, Mr. Rhodes, stepped in and shook his head. "Let it be," he whispered. The supervisor blinked, surprised. Mr. Rhodes never let anything slide. But tonight, something was different. Even he could feel it. As the video continued to record, Elena finished the piece and paused. She opened her eyes. For the first time since sitting down, she saw the room. People were watching. Not just a few, dozens, maybe more. Her breath caught. Her heart pounded so hard she felt it in her fingertips. She thought about getting up, running, pretending this never happened. But then someone near the front clapped. Just once. Then again. Couple joined. Then more. It wasn't a roaring applause. It wasn't thunder. It wasn't dramatic. But it was real. It was enough. Elena bowed her head slightly, her cheeks warm. She didn't know what to do with her hands. She placed them back on the keys because it felt safer. She began to play a second piece, one she had made up herself. It didn't have a name. It didn't follow rules. It just existed like a feeling with a pulse. Each note felt like she was walking further into unfamiliar territory, like a traveler exploring a map she had drawn by instinct. It was scary, but also thrilling. She had never shared her own music before, not even with her mother. As she played, she thought about all the hours spent practicing in that tiny room. The broken keyboard, the late nights, the doubts, the times she almost quit. It all poured out of her. Her music held those memories gently, like hands cupping water. Halfway through the song, her hands hesitated. She wasn't sure where to go next. She felt the audience waiting. It made her nervous. She almost froze. Then, from somewhere in the crowd, someone whispered, "Keep going." She didn't know who said it. Maybe it didn't matter. Whoever it was gave her a lifeline. She continued. The melody shifted, blooming into something brighter. She improvised a hopeful ending, like sunshine breaking through clouds. When she finally lifted her hands, the lobby was quiet for a heartbeat. Then applause rose again, louder this time but still polite, respectful. She let the sound wash over her. It didn't feel like praise. It felt like acknowledgement. It felt like someone saying, "We see you." Her manager approached cautiously. He stood beside the piano, unsure how to address her. He cleared his throat. "That was unexpected," he said, his voice stiff from habit. Elena nodded, not sure if he meant it in a good or bad way. "But he added, loosening his posture. Good. Very good. She didn't know how to respond, so she just said, thank you. For the rest of the night, Elena played while the gala unfolded around her. Servers floated across the room with trays. Guests chatted and networked. A charity auction was held on stage. Laughter and conversation blended with her music, creating a world she had never experienced from the inside before. Every song she played taught her something about herself. Every reaction from the audience reminded her that strangers could listen, not just hear. She learned to breathe between notes. She learned that she didn't need to be perfect to move people. She learned that fear and courage could exist in the same heartbeat. Even when her fingers ached, she kept going. At one point, a teenager in a suit approached her during a short break. How long have you played? He asked, eyes wide. Since I was 11, she said. Where did you train? She looked at the piano, then back at him. Home. No teachers. No. He blinked, impressed. You should be on a stage. She smiled, a little embarrassed. This is a stage, sort of. He shook his head gently. Not the right one. Before she could answer, a chaperone called him back. He waved and left. She returned to the keys, but his words lingered. She wondered what the right stage looked like. Would she ever find it? Or was she already closer than she realized? As the gala wound down, guests began to leave, some stopping to compliment her in shy or enthusiastic ways. A woman in a glittering dress placed a small card on the piano and whispered, Call if you ever want guidance. I know some people. Elena didn't understand what that meant, but she accepted the card with shaking hands. When the last note of the evening faded, the ballroom lights softened, like the hotel itself was exhaling after a long day. Elena closed the piano gently. She sat there for a moment, letting her body catch up with everything her heart had just lived. She expected to feel relief, maybe exhaustion, maybe embarrassment, but what she felt instead was possibility. Like the world had cracked open just a little, enough for her to see a glimpse of what could be. She got up and rejoined the staff. The black dress suddenly felt like armor instead of a costume. She walked through the lobby, not as a shadow, but as someone who had been seen. What she couldn't know was that while she walked, the video recorded earlier was already online, already spreading, already collecting views, already pulling strangers into her story. Before she even clocked out, comments were appearing. Who is she? This is magic. I'm crying and I don't know why. Somebody sign her. And somewhere, in the city beyond the hotel, opportunities she never imagined were waking up, stretching, getting ready to look for her. Elena went home that night unaware that her life had already begun to change. She just knew one thing for sure. This time, the music had been heard. Elena didn't hear her alarm the next morning. She woke up late, sunlight already slipping in through the blinds like quiet fingers pulling her back into the world. For a moment, she didn't remember what had happened the night before. She blinked at the ceiling, her mind slow, like a computer loading. Then, like the swell of a rising melody, everything returned. The piano, the audience, the applause. She sat up suddenly, heart racing. Had it really happened? It felt like a dream someone had whispered to her while she slept. She rubbed her eyes and looked at her phone on the nightstand. It blinked with notifications, more than she had ever seen. Missed calls, messages, social media updates, even emails. Her phone looked like it was overheating with attention. She hesitated before picking it up. A part of her wanted to throw it back under the blanket and pretend today was normal. Pretend nothing had changed so she wouldn't be disappointed if none of it was real. But curiosity was louder. She unlocked the screen and stared. There were messages from classmates she hadn't spoken to in months. Questions, exclamation marks, screenshots of her at the piano, voice notes filled with shock. Then there were messages from strangers, people she didn't know, writing things in broken sentences because they were too excited to care about grammar. I saw your video. You're amazing. Please tell me you have a channel? I cried, I swear. You just inspired me to start playing again. She scrolled down until her thumb hurt. Her stomach fluttered. not with fear or nerves, but something else. Something she didn't know if she was allowed to feel. Hope. She checked the video. It already had thousands of views. She covered her mouth, her eyes wide. She couldn't breathe for a moment. She felt like the ground beneath her had shifted, like she was standing on a staircase that had suddenly grown taller. She got up, her legs a little shaky, and walked to the kitchen. Her mother was already there, sitting with a cup of tea. She looked tired, like always, but when she saw Elena, her face changed. She smiled, not big, but with a softness that seemed to glow. "I heard music last night," her mother said. "I didn't have to be there to hear it. The neighbors told me someone played beautifully at the hotel. They didn't know it was you." Elena sat down, her throat tight. "It wasn't perfect. It didn't need to be," her mother replied. "Perfect is silent. You were heard." That thought settled in Elena's mind like a seed. Heard. It felt like a word she needed to grow used to, like trying on a coat that didn't fit yet but might soon. She got ready for school, her phone buzzing like a motor the whole time. She wanted to throw it in her backpack and ignore it, but she couldn't help sneaking glances. More views, more comments, more people seeing her. When she finally walked to class, the hallways felt different. Not because they had changed, but because she had. People looked at her longer. Some whispered, some pointed, but it wasn't mocking or cold. It was curiosity, recognition, confusion, respect. Their eyes held questions she couldn't answer yet. At her locker, a boy from her math class approached. He had never said more than 3 words to her before. "You're the girl from the video, right?" he asked. She nodded, unsure what to say. "It was really good," he said, his voice awkward. "Like, I didn't know someone from here could do that." "Someone from here?" she repeated in her mind. It struck her. People like her weren't expected to surprise the world. Their stories weren't usually told. They were background characters in their own schools. Maybe she could change that. She went to class, and her teachers looked at her strangely too, like they were seeing her for the first time. When attendance was called, a few students clapped quietly. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment, but a small part of her warmed too. It felt like someone had opened a window inside her chest and fresh air was coming in. After school, she didn't go to the cafe right away. She had a strange urge to visit the lobby again, to sit at the piano even if she wasn't allowed, to see if it still felt like hers. But instead, she took the bus home. She needed to think. The comments stayed in her mind. The applause echoed in her ears. It felt like something was knocking at her life, asking to be let in. She sat on her bed and stared at the keyboard. For years, it had been her only audience. Now the world was listening. She wanted to feel proud, but something tugged at her nerves. What if this was it? What if she had already peaked? What if the world moved on tomorrow and she stayed behind, unchanged? The fear felt heavy, like a hand pressing on her shoulder. That evening, when she arrived at the hotel for her shift, she was greeted differently. People in uniforms smiled at her. Someone from the front desk waved. The florist from the Gala said, "Bravo," like she was already a professional. Mr. Rhodes called her into his office. He cleared his throat and stared at his clipboard, as if it held the words he couldn't say. "The hotel wants to thank you," he began. "Officially, the event reviews are positive. Very positive. There's even a comment about you in a post from a local magazine." Elena blinked. "A magazine? About her?" "You are still an employee," he continued. "You will still do your regular duties. But there may be occasions when we ask you to play during special events. Only if you feel comfortable." She nodded, trying to stay calm. She didn't want to seem desperate or overly eager. "And," he added slowly, "someone called for you." Her heart skipped. "A woman from a music foundation," he said. "She asked for your contact information. I have her card. You should consider calling. It could lead to opportunities. Lessons, maybe. Scholarships." Scholarships. The word dropped like a stone into her stomach. Heavy, but with a ripple of possibility. She took the card carefully, like it might break. She wanted to run home and dial the number immediately, but she forced herself to breathe. Thank you, she whispered. That performance, he said, finally meeting her eyes, was more than we expected. It was the closest thing to praise she and Mr. Rhodes had ever exchanged. Felt like a medal pinned to her chest. She returned to her duties, but her mind wasn't in the cafe. Every time she heard the piano from the lobby, something fluttered inside her like wings uncurling. Later, during her break, she wandered toward the piano. It sat there, glossy and grand, like a quiet witness to everything she had become overnight. She placed her hand on the lid, not opening it, just resting there. She whispered, "Thank you," without knowing why or who she was thanking. The piano? The moment? The universe? She didn't need an answer. On her walk to the bus stop after her shift, the city lights looked different. Brighter, like the world had turned up the saturation. She passed benches, street lamps, trees, and windows, all ordinary things, but they felt like part of a movie set, like anything could happen. Her phone buzzed again. She almost ignored it. She was tired, but something made her look. A new message, from someone she didn't know. Not a stranger online, not a classmate, a name she recognized, a musician she had admired from afar, someone she had watched tutorials from, someone whose comments on videos had helped her learn new techniques. The message was short. "I saw the video. I'd like to hear more. Do you have any recordings?" Elena stopped walking. The wind blew through her hair. Car passed. A dog barked somewhere down the block. The world moved around her, but she felt still, anchored by those words. "Do you have any recordings?" She didn't. Not really. Just bits and pieces. Half-finished melodies saved as voice notes. Short clips where she stopped recording because she didn't think it mattered. Suddenly, those scraps felt like treasure. She typed back with trembling hands. "I can record something." She hit send before she could question herself. When she boarded the bus, she didn't sit in her usual seat at the back. She sat near the middle, where the light was brighter. She looked out the window, her reflection staring back at her. She didn't see a waitress. She didn't see a background character. She didn't see a girl hiding her talent like something shameful. She saw someone standing at the beginning of a path she never knew existed. Maybe the world hadn't changed. Maybe she had. She pulled out her phone, opened the voice recorder, and whispered, "Okay, let's begin." Elena sat on the bus with her phone still open, the voice recorder blinking like a tiny heartbeat on the screen. She wanted to press record right then and there, capture whatever she was feeling before it slipped away. But the bus engine rumbled. People were talking, and she didn't want her first real step into the world of music to have background noise of strangers discussing grocery lists or weekend plans. So she pressed the screen and stopped the recording before it began. She would wait. She wanted her first recording to be honest, but also something she could be proud of listening back to. At home, the apartment felt smaller than usual, like her dreams were expanding faster than the walls could contain. She dropped her backpack in her room and walked straight to the keyboard. The familiar plastic keys, slightly yellowed from age, looked different now. Not better, not worse, just like something that was no longer the end of the road, but the beginning. She sat down and placed her fingers lightly on the keys. She closed her eyes. She tried a melody. Stopped. Tried again. The notes didn't flow the way she wanted. They felt stiff, like her fingers were nervous. She shook her hands out and took a deep breath. This wasn't like playing at the Gala. No one was watching. There was no pressure to impress. But somehow, the idea of recording something made her more anxious than performing in front of strangers. A recording felt permanent, like she needed to prove she deserved the attention she was getting, like she needed to earn the right to keep going. She tried again, a few uncertain notes, a short run of a melody she had invented months ago. Felt like flipping through pages of an unfinished book. She stopped again, frustrated. Her mother knocked softly on the door. "You're home early," she said, entering with a mug of warm milk. She placed it on the desk. "Everything okay?" "I need to record something," Elena said. The words came out more dramatic than she meant. "I don't know what, but I need to." Her mother nodded. She didn't fully understand the world Elena was stepping toward, but she didn't need to. Then don't try to make it perfect, her mother said. Just make it honest. Start there. Elena nodded. She took a sip of milk. It warmed her throat. She placed her phone on the keyboard stand, angled just right. Then she began. Not with a fancy intro, not with a practiced piece, just sound. She played a simple tune, like someone walking through a memory. Slow, then faster, then drifting into something else entirely. Her fingers found patterns she didn't know she remembered. She slipped on a few notes but kept going. She didn't stop this time. She let the music lead her, like a friend pulling her by the hand. When she finished, she didn't move. She didn't breathe for a second. She stared at the screen. The recording time read 3:42. That was it. 3 minutes and 42 seconds that held years of practice and hope and fear. She listened back once. It wasn't perfect, but she didn't hate it. There were mistakes, but they felt like fingerprints, proof she was human. She sent it, the message to the musician she admired. "This is what I have for now," she wrote. "Thank you for listening." Then she put her phone face down and left the room like it might explode if she stared at it. She busied herself with chores, washing dishes, folding laundry, wiping the counters, even though she didn't need to. Anything to keep from checking for a reply every 5 seconds. Hours passed. No response. She went to bed. The next morning, her phone buzzed before her alarm. She blinked sleep away and unlocked the screen. A reply. "I listened. There is emotion in the way you play. Keep recording. Don't wait for things to be perfect before you share them. That's how you grow. If you want, I can give feedback sometimes." Elena stared at the message, her mind echoing one line. Don't wait for perfect. She felt something crack open inside her. A small, sharp shift. Permission to try. Permission to fail. She typed with shaking fingers. "Yes, please. I want to learn." She paused, then added, "Thank you for seeing me." The reply came moments later. "You weren't hidden. You were just waiting for the right moment to be found." She held her phone to her chest for a second, letting the words sink in like sunlight. Then she got ready for school. At school, things felt even louder. More people had seen the video now. A girl from the debate club stopped her in the hallway. "You inspire me," she said. Her voice was shy. "I like writing. I always thought no one would care. But seeing you, I think maybe I should try sharing my work too." Elena didn't know how to respond to that. She simply nodded and said, "Please do. The world needs more voices." During lunch, she sat alone by choice. She needed the quiet. She opened her phone, and for the first time, she typed her own name into the search bar. She didn't expect anything, but there it was. Her video, people talking about her. Comments like, "Talent comes from unexpected places. Who is this girl? I hope she keeps going." She felt her throat tighten, not with fear, with disbelief. After school, she went to work. The cafe was busy. People ordering pastries, asking for oat milk, almond milk, gluten-free options, half-sweet syrup. The ordinary rhythm of life. She welcomed the familiarity. It grounded her. Halfway through her shift, Mr. Rhodes approached her, holding a flyer. "This came to the hotel," he said, handing it to her. It was for a music showcase downtown. A small event. Local performers. Open stage. Her heart skipped. They asked if any young musicians from the Gala would be interested. Elena stared at the flyer like it was written in a foreign language. "You don't have to," he said, reading her silence. "I just thought you should have the choice." Choice. What a strange word. She wasn't used to choices. Life had always felt like doing what she had to do, not what she wanted to do. "Can I think about it?" she asked. He nodded. When she got home, she stared at the flyer again under her bedroom light. Her keyboard sat in the corner like a witness waiting for her next move. She placed the flyer on the stand, right above the keys. Then she opened her notebook, the one where she wrote down bits of song ideas and random sentences. On a blank page, she wrote, "Why not me?" She sat back. She had never asked that before. She had always assumed opportunities belonged to other people. People with money, people with training, people with confidence built into their bones. But maybe confidence wasn't a starting point. Maybe it was something you built as you moved. She practiced for a while, not to prepare for anything specific, but to remind herself she could. Then she took a break and picked up her phone. Another message from the musician. If you ever want to visit a studio someday, let me know. I can recommend places that won't take advantage of young artists. Studio. The word felt impossible, like talking about going to the moon, but the door was open even if only a crack. She replied, "One day. I hope so." That night, she sat on her bed with her knees pulled up and thought about the showcase. The stage, the people, the risk, the fear, the possibility. She imagined going. She imagined failing. She imagined succeeding. She imagined neither, just being average. Even then, the image didn't scare her as much as the idea of doing nothing. So she picked up the flyer, held it in her hand, and whispered her decision into the room. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough for the air to hear. "I'll go." The next morning, she signed up. The event organizer replied within an hour, confirming her slot. She stared at the message, her heartbeat quickening. It was real now. She practiced more deliberately after that. She recorded small pieces to share with the musician for feedback. Each time, the feedback was kind but honest, helping her grow. She learned to count her breaths while playing, to control the tempo with intention, to let silence be part of the song. Days passed. She balanced school, work, and music. Some nights she fell asleep sitting up against the wall, the keyboard still on, a blanket barely covering her legs. She wasn't sure how long she could keep the pace, but she didn't stop, because for the first time in her life, her effort didn't feel like running in place. Felt like moving forward. The night before the showcase, she sat at the keyboard and closed her eyes. "What if I'm not ready?" she whispered. Her mother spoke from the doorway. "No one is ready for their first step," she said. "But they take it anyway, and that's how the path begins." Elena swallowed, then nodded. She set an alarm, laid out her clothes, packed her sheet music, and tried to sleep. She barely did. The morning of the showcase, she walked to the bus stop with headphones in, listening to the sound of her own breathing instead of music. The city felt different, like it was waiting, like it had noticed her. She clutched her backpack strap tighter. Then she whispered to herself, "One more step," and she took it. The morning of the showcase, the sky was a soft gray, like the world had been washed clean overnight. Elena woke up before her alarm. She lay still for a moment, listening to her heartbeat. It felt louder than normal, like her chest was its own small drum. She sat up slowly, her mind trying to catch up to the day in front of her. She brushed her teeth, packed her backpack, tied her hair back twice to make sure it wouldn't fall loose. She changed her shirt twice, too, because each time she looked in the mirror she wondered if she looked like someone who had earned the right to step on a stage. She reminded herself of what her mother said. No one is ready for their first step. They just take it. Her mother made her a simple breakfast, toast with butter, and tea in a chipped mug. The mug had a faded pattern of stars on it, a design worn thin from years of washing. Elena stared at the stars while she ate, trying to swallow her nerves. "You don't have to impress anyone," her mother said gently. "Just show up. Sometimes showing up is the bravest thing." Elena nodded. She wanted to believe that. She wanted to believe that being seen was enough for now. But a voice inside her kept whispering, "What if you disappoint them? What if last time was luck? What if you don't belong out there?" She pushed the voice down the best she could. At the bus stop, she stood under the gray sky, holding her backpack straps like they were handles to keep her steady. The bus approached with a hiss of brakes. When she climbed aboard, she noticed her hands were trembling. She sat near the window, her sheet music tucked safely inside her bag. Even though she wasn't entirely sure she would use it, she didn't know if her performance would be structured or improvised. She just knew she needed to try. The bus rattled through the city, passing familiar buildings that suddenly looked like part of a movie set. Cafes opening for the morning rush. Students walking with backpacks slung low. Someone jogging with headphones in. Taxi drivers leaning out their windows to wave at each other. The ordinary world kept spinning, unaware that today felt enormous to her. She got off near the venue, a community arts center tucked between a bakery and a bookstore. The windows were covered with posters showing smiling dancers, children holding paintbrushes, and musicians mid-performance. She stared at them for a moment. They looked confident. They looked like people who belonged. Inside, the lobby buzzed with activity. Young performers in casual clothes held guitars, violins, notebooks full of poems. Parents carried camera bags and water bottles. Volunteers handed out programs. The room smelled like fresh coffee and stage dust, an oddly comforting mix. At the sign-in table, a woman with round glasses smiled. "Name?" "Elena," she said, her voice small. The woman checked the list and nodded. "You're third in the lineup. Warm-up rooms are down that hallway on the left. If you need anything, let me know." Third. That meant she wouldn't have to wait all day, but she also wouldn't have time to settle her nerves. Her stomach twisted. She thanked the woman and walked toward the hall. The warm-up room was crowded. A boy with a guitar strummed chords nervously. A girl practiced singing scales quietly. Two pianists whispered about hand positions. Elena sat in the corner, pulling out her music notebook. She flipped through pages filled with ideas. Some pieces had names like River or Weightless. Others were nameless scratches of pencil and crossed-out notes. She didn't know which one to play yet. As she stared at the pages, she overheard two performers talking beside her. "Are you nervous?" one asked. "Yeah," the other replied. "But I figured nerves mean I care. If I didn't care, I wouldn't shake." Elena breathed in slowly. Nerves mean I care. Maybe that wasn't something to be afraid of. As her turn approached, a volunteer poked her head into the room. "Elena? You're up soon." Elena stood, smoothing the front of her shirt. She slung her backpack onto her shoulder and followed the volunteer down a hallway lit with warm yellow lights. Felt like walking toward the unknown. Just before stepping backstage, she heard applause from the audience. Someone else had just finished. The sound washed over her like a wave. Applause meant someone survived their turn. Someone faced the fear and came out okay. The volunteer whispered, "You're after this next act." Elena nodded. Her heartbeat was so loud she wondered if the audience could hear it through the curtains. She peeked through a gap to see the stage. It was small, not fancy. A simple black piano sat under a spotlight. A microphone on a stand nearby. Chairs lined up in the audience, maybe 50 or 60 people total. Not a gala full of elites. Not strangers in sparkling jewelry. Just regular people, families, friends, teachers. For a moment, that made her more nervous. These people weren't distracted by luxury or busy conversations. They were here to listen. A teenager finished their spoken word poem. The audience clapped, and the host stepped forward. Next, we have Elena, performing an original piano piece. Hearing her name made her knees weak. She closed her eyes, inhaled deeply, then stepped onto the stage. The lights felt hot on her skin. She sat at the piano bench, adjusted it slightly, and placed her fingers on the keys. Silence. It was the kind of silence that asks a question. She decided to answer it. She began to play. First, it was shaky, too soft. The notes felt like they might fall apart. But she kept going. She thought about the gala, the video, the messages, the showcase flyer, the musician who told her not to wait for perfect, the bus ride, the warm-up room, the girl who said nerves meant caring. She thought about her mother's tired smile, the chipped mug with stars, the second-hand keyboard. Her fingers steadied. She wasn't playing a known piece. She wasn't reading sheet music. She was writing in real time with sound. A new melody emerged, something she hadn't played before. Surprised her. It was hopeful, but with something fragile beneath it, like glass catching light. The right hand danced, the left grounded the rhythm. There were imperfections. A few notes hesitated, but there was sincerity, honesty. Halfway through, Something happened she didn't expect. She enjoyed it. Truly enjoyed it. Not because she was impressing anyone, but because for the first time the stage didn't feel like a test. It felt like a room where she was allowed to exist fully. A room where music wasn't background noise, it was the point. She reached the final notes, letting them ring out. The sound hung in the air, like it didn't want to leave. Then silence. Then applause. Not polite applause. Warm applause. Human applause. She looked up, breathless. A few people had tears in their eyes. Someone in the back stood. A small standing ovation, followed by more people rising slowly. Not because they felt they had to, but because something in the music moved them. She covered her mouth with her hand, overwhelmed. She stood, bowed, and walked off stage before her legs gave out. Backstage, she leaned against the wall, breathing hard. She didn't cry, but her eyes stung. Tears hovered, not from sadness, but from release. The organizer approached. "You have something rare," she said. "Not just talent. Connection. Do you understand that?" Elena didn't. Not really. She just shook her head. "That's okay," the organizer said. "Most people don't realize what they hold until the world shows them." A man from the audience approached next. He introduced himself as a piano teacher at a local art school. He offered her a trial lesson for free. "No commitment," he said. "Just let me see where you could go with guidance." She nodded, speechless. Then a girl her age hugged her unexpectedly, whispering, "Thank you. I didn't know music could feel like that." Elena didn't know how to respond. She just hugged her back softly. By the time she left the art center, the sky had cleared. The gray clouds were moving away, leaving patches of blue behind them. Elena walked slowly, her backpack feeling lighter than usual. She reached the bus stop and sat down, staring at her hands. They looked the same, small, ordinary. But now she knew what they could do. Her phone buzzed. A message from the musician who had been helping her. "How did it go?" She typed back. "I showed up, and the world met me halfway." There was a pause, then a reply. "That's how journeys begin." On the bus ride home, Elena didn't look out the window. She looked forward. She didn't know where she was heading, but for the first time she didn't feel lost. She felt like she was on her way. One small stage, one small moment, one step. Her path was no longer a dream. It was real, and she was walking it. Elena returned home from the showcase with her heart still racing. But for once, it wasn't from fear. It was from the weight of something new settling inside her. A feeling she didn't have a name for yet. It wasn't pride exactly or confidence. It was like she had finally stepped into her own story, instead of watching from the edges. The apartment smelled like dinner, rice and vegetables simmering on the stove. Her mother was seated at the table, reading the mail. When Elena walked in, she didn't say anything at first. Her mother looked up and their eyes met. Maybe it was the glow in Elena's eyes, or maybe her posture was different. Either way, her mother knew. "How was it?" she asked. Elena placed her backpack down slowly, like she was carrying glass. "I played," she said, "and they heard me." Her mother smiled. Not a wide smile, but a gentle, proud one. The kind that holds more emotion than 1,000 words. "That's all you needed," she said. A room where the echo came back. Elena sat down, suddenly exhausted. Performing had drained her in ways she didn't expect. Not just her body, but her mind. It felt like she had used up all her thoughts and would need to grow new ones. Her mother scooped some food onto a plate and pushed it toward her. "You should eat," she said softly. Elena ate quietly, tasting the food but barely aware of it. Her mind was replaying the showcase over and over. The lights, the applause, the girl who hugged her, the piano teacher offering lessons, the music that came out of her hands without warning. She wondered if every big moment felt that unreal, like something you could touch but not fully grasp. After dinner, she went to her room. She sat at her keyboard but didn't turn it on. She just looked at the keys, remembering the grand piano at the art center. It felt like going from the ocean back to a bathtub. But she didn't feel disappointed. She felt grateful. This keyboard was where everything began. It was proof that beginnings don't need to be glamorous to matter. She placed her fingers on the keys gently and pressed down. The keyboard crackled slightly as one of the connections flickered, but the sound came through. It wasn't perfect. Neither was she. That was okay. She played softly, humming along, letting her body unwind. She didn't practice on purpose. She just let the music be a place to rest. Her phone buzzed on the bed. She finished the phrase she was playing before she checked it. A message from the musician again. Proud of you. Keep going. The momentum is real now. But don't rush. Grow at your own pace. She read the message twice. The idea of momentum scared her. Momentum meant motion. Motion meant choices. Choices meant possibly choosing wrong. She replied, I don't know where this is going. The response came quickly. That's okay. Paths are discovered, not predicted. She put her phone down and lay on her back, staring at the ceiling. She thought about her life like a staircase she had only just realized she was climbing. Each step behind her was hard to see clearly, but the steps ahead, they were starting to show. The next morning at school, something had shifted again. People looked at her in a way she wasn't used to, not like she was invisible, not like she was somebody, somewhere in between, curious, hopeful, maybe even inspired. A teacher stopped her in the hallway. I watched your video, he said. It takes courage to share your voice. Remember, art is impact, not perfection. Elena nodded, absorbing every word like rain on dry soil. At lunch, she chose a table by the window, not to hide but to think. But she didn't stay alone for long. A younger student approached, clutching a notebook like it was a shield. Can I sit here? The girl asked. Sure, Elena said. The girl sat, scribbled something nervously, then finally looked up. I've been writing songs, she said, but I'm scared to sing them out loud. I'm scared they won't sound the way they feel in my head. Elena looked at her. She saw herself in the girl. Not exactly, but enough. It's okay to be scared, Elena said. It means you care. You can start small. You don't have to share everything at once. Just one note, one line, one room. The girl nodded like that idea made sense to her, like it was a door she could open. As the day went on, Elena began to notice something. People weren't seeing her as the girl from the video anymore. They were seeing her as Elena, and that change felt bigger than going viral. When she got to the cafe for work, her coworker, Lila, nearly tackled her with happiness. You did it, she said. I knew you could. I told you. I told you. Elena laughed, actually laughed. Felt good. It was just a small stage, she said. No stage is small if your heart grows on it, Lila replied. Mr. Rhodes overheard them and cleared his throat. They both straightened automatically. You have a choice, he said, folding his arms. You can continue working your usual schedule, or we can make adjustments. Fewer hours, more time for music. But I want you to think about what you want, really want, not what you think you should want. Elena blinked, stunned. The idea of someone adjusting the world to make room for her dreams was a foreign concept. She wasn't used to that kind of flexibility. She wasn't used to being accommodated. I'll think about it, she said. He nodded. Good. Take your time. The shift passed in a blur. She wiped tables, poured coffee, listened to customers talk about their lives. But her mind wasn't trapped in the routine like before. It wandered without apology. Thoughts of music, stages, lessons, recordings, growth. When the cafe closed, she didn't go home right away. She drifted to the lobby, drawn to the piano like a compass. The piano was uncovered tonight. The lid was lifted. The keys gleamed under the chandelier. No one was around. She sat down. She didn't play loudly. She didn't need to. She just pressed a few notes, letting them float. The room was still listening. Felt like the piano was talking back. After a few minutes, someone approached quietly behind her. She turned and saw one of the hotel guests, a young woman with a long coat, holding a cup of tea. I heard you at the gala, the woman said gently. I was having a difficult week. Your music made me feel less alone. Elena didn't know what to say. She just nodded, her throat tight. The woman smiled softly. That's the thing about music. It doesn't need permission to reach people. It just does. Then she walked away, leaving Elena with a heart full of something warm and unfamiliar. When Elena finally left the hotel, the city was dark, but the street lamps stretched light across the sidewalk like guiding lines. She stopped outside, pulled out her phone, and opened a new note. At the top, she typed, "What if my music isn't meant to be perfect? What if it's meant to be needed?" She stood there, letting the thought sink in. For so long, she had seen her dreams as a fragile thing, like glass that could crack at the slightest pressure. But now, she wondered if maybe her dreams were softer and stronger than glass, like clay, something she could shape, something that could change shape without breaking. At home, she turned on her keyboard again. This time, she recorded not to impress, not to prove, but to remember how it felt to be seen, heard, held by sound. When she finished, she didn't listen back like she used to, searching for mistakes. She let the recording sit untouched, like a seed buried in soil. As she got ready for bed, she realized something. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. She didn't know if more people would listen. She didn't know if opportunities would grow or fade. But she knew she wasn't waiting for someone else to tell her who she was anymore. She was building it, one note at a time, one room at a time, one moment at a time. She turned off the light, the glow of the moon slipping across her floor like a path. Tomorrow wasn't guaranteed, but for the first time she was excited for it. Elena woke up before sunrise again. But this time, it wasn't because she was exhausted or stressed. She woke up because her mind was too full to sleep. Ideas sparked in her brain like stars blinking awake in a night sky. She sat up slowly and looked around her room. It still looked the same. The faded posters, the chipped paint, the second-hand keyboard. But something in the air felt different, like possibility was floating through the room. She stretched and stood by the window. Outside, the world was still half asleep. Streetlights glowed like tiny suns, and the first birds began to sing soft songs to the sky. The day hadn't started yet, but Elena had already decided something. She was done treating her dream like a secret. She pulled out her notebook and flipped to a fresh page. She wrote at the top, "What does moving forward look like?" Then she drew lines beneath the question like she was preparing the page to hold an important answer. At first, she didn't know what to write. Moving forward didn't mean quitting school or running away. It didn't mean she would suddenly become famous or be invited to sell out concerts. It didn't mean money or glamour. Moving forward meant choosing. Choosing to stay in motion. Choosing to say yes. Choosing to say no. Choosing to belong. She wrote slowly. 1. Call the music foundation. 2. Try one lesson with the piano teacher. 3. Ask Mr. Rhodes to adjust my schedule. 4. Record one piece every week. 5. Share without waiting for perfect. She stared at the list. It felt simple, almost too simple for something so big. But she remembered what the musician told her. Paths are discovered, not predicted. She didn't need to see the whole staircase, just the next step. Her mother knocked softly and peeked in. "You're up early," she said. "I have things to do," Elena replied, surprising herself. "Good things?" her mother asked, pouring more meaning into 2 words than most people could. "Yes," Elena said. "Good things. Scary things. But good." Her mother sat beside her on the bed. "Fear doesn't mean stop. Fear means something matters. You know that now, don't you?" Elena nodded. She did. The fear she felt now was not the same fear she had before. This fear didn't trap her. Pointed somewhere. Pointed forward. She dressed and went to school, but instead of hiding in the back or lowering her gaze in the hall, she walked with her head up. Not like she owned the place, just like she belonged in it. She smiled at people who looked at her. Not because she wanted attention, but because she understood something now. Being seen was not the same as being exposed. Being seen could be connection. After her last class, she headed to the cafe. She felt nervous about talking to Mr. Rhodes. For so long, her job was the anchor of her life, the thing that kept her steady, even when everything else felt uncertain. Asking to change her schedule felt like stepping off the edge of something safe. But she remembered her list. She remembered step 3. She found him in the back office. "Do you have a minute?" she asked. He looked up from his papers. "Of course." She stood straighter. Her voice trembled a little, but she didn't let it break. "I need more time for music," she said. "I don't want to leave, but I need fewer hours. Maybe just weekends or evenings." He watched her, studying her expression. He didn't interrupt. He let her speak. "I want to be responsible," she added quickly. "I don't want to abandon what I started here, but I also don't want to abandon what's starting out there. I need to try. I think I need to try." Silence sat between them for a moment. Then he nodded. "I wondered when you would ask," he said. "I already adjusted next week's schedule. I figured this conversation was coming." Elena blinked, stunned. "You did. This place will be fine," he said. "But opportunities that pull at the heart don't come often. I am not interested in being the reason someone stays stuck." She felt a lump in her throat. Gratitude was heavy, like a warm stone she didn't know how to carry. "Thank you," she whispered. "Make us proud," he said. "Or don't. Just make yourself proud. That's enough." The rest of her shift felt lighter, like the floor beneath her feet had turned into a path instead of a circle. After work, she went straight to the art center to meet the piano teacher who had offered the free lesson. The room smelled like sheet music and dust and possibilities. The teacher asked her to play something. Anything. She chose the piece she wrote the night before. Her fingers shook at first, but as she played, she noticed something. He wasn't judging her. He was listening, really listening, like every note was a sentence he wanted to understand. When she finished, he didn't clap. He smiled. "You play like someone who thinks," he said. "That's rare. We can work with technique. But thought is a gift." She exhaled slowly. She didn't know she'd been holding her breath. By the end of the lesson, she learned new exercises, new ways to hold her wrist, new ways to breathe while playing. Small adjustments that made her music feel like it was growing roots. "You have foundation," he said. "Now we build floors." It felt like someone had handed her a blueprint to her own dream. That night, sitting at her keyboard, she recorded again. Not because she owed someone a recording or because she needed to maintain attention online, but because she wanted to hear who she was becoming. She played a piece that started soft and unsure, like a memory, then lifted like a window being opened. It wasn't perfect, but she didn't stop. When she finished, she listened back. Her mistakes didn't sound like flaws. They sounded like fingerprints, like evidence of a human learning in real time. The next day, she finally dialed the number on the music foundation card. Her heart pounded. She expected to stutter or freeze, but she didn't. She spoke clearly, asked questions, listened, took notes. When she hung up, she realized her hands weren't shaking anymore. Slowly, the world was changing shape around her. Weeks passed. She balanced everything: school, music lessons, the cafe, recording. Sometimes she felt tired. Sometimes she felt overwhelmed. Sometimes she doubted every step. But she didn't go backward. Not once. Her following online grew. Not huge. Not millions. But enough. Enough to feel like she was part of something. Enough to feel like her music wasn't just echoing inside her bedroom walls. One afternoon, sitting on a bench outside the arts center, she took out her notebook and looked at the list she had written weeks ago. She checked off every item. All 5. She stared at the page. It didn't feel like the end. It felt like the beginning of a new list. She turned the page and wrote, next steps. 1. Build a small online presence. 2. Learn to record professionally. 3. Save for studio time. 4. Share original compositions. 5. Help others when I can. She paused, then added, 6. Don't shrink back when the world gets bigger. The city around her buzzed with life. Cars honked. Someone laughed in the distance. A dog barked. Everything moved. Everything rushed. But Elena felt still. Not stuck, just rooted. A feeling washed over her. Something clear and new. She didn't need a viral moment to stay afloat. She didn't need endless applause to believe in her talent. She didn't need perfection to earn her place. She just needed to keep going. Later that night, she sat at her keyboard again. She didn't record. She didn't rehearse. She didn't prepare a piece. She just played, letting her fingers move like they were remembering a map she hadn't learned yet. Her mother listened from the hallway, leaning against the doorframe. She didn't interrupt. She didn't speak. She just closed her eyes and let the music fill her like warmth. When Elena finally stopped, her mother stepped inside. "You sound like someone who knows where she's going," she said. Elena nodded slowly. "I don't know where I'll end up," she replied. "But I know I'm on the road." Her mother hugged her, gentle and careful, like she was holding something new and precious. "You always were," she whispered. "You just had to see it." Later, when Elena lay in bed staring at the ceiling, she thought about everything that had happened. In the beginning, her story felt like something happening to her. Now it felt like something she was choosing. The difference was everything. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Maybe a setback, maybe a breakthrough, maybe just a normal day. But she was no longer afraid of normal. Normal didn't mean invisible. Normal didn't mean forgotten. Normal meant she could build, brick by brick, note by note, step by step. She smiled in the dark and whispered the words she wished she could tell her younger self. "You are allowed to try." Then she closed her eyes, the sound of her own heartbeat steady and sure, and drifted into a sleep that felt like rest, not escape. And somewhere, in the quiet, the music waited for tomorrow.